So let's take a look, guys, at our Class 4A. Welcome back to Gem State Game Day, by the way. Let's take a look at our Class 4A preseason favorites here. This is according to our coaches' polls. And again, you can find all of those coaches' polls at our website, IdahoSports.com. Moscow, the newcomer to the Intermountain League, District 1 and 2. They're dropping down a level for competitive reasons. They have the enrollment of a 5A school, but this is a program that's fallen on hard times. So they're dropping down a level to try and build that program back up. And Bonners Ferry and Timberlake seem to think that's a bad thing for them because they both picked Moscow number 1 in the preseason coaches poll. Homedale, of course, the favorite over in the Snake River Valley Conference. It was very tight, edged out Weiser by a single point in our voting system. Kimberly, the overwhelming favorite over there from District 4. The SCIC, the Sawtooth Central Idaho Conference. And then over in East Idaho, Snake River, your favorite in District 5. And, of course, Big Bad Sugar Salem, the favorite over in District 6. I'm going to start with Sugar Salem just because, well, they're the defending champs. And, man, Logan, what is it? They've won 5 of the last 6 state championships, right?
Right, and we're about 6 inches from making it 6 of 6. If they weren't stopped at about the half grass line there on a 2-point conversion in double overtime against Weiser.
Yeah, just a phenomenal program. They continue to excel year in, year out. Tyler Richens does a fantastic job. And, yeah, they did lose some, pretty impactful players, right? Carson Harris was the 3A player of the year last year. Fantastic running back. They lost some really big linemen up front, and yet Sugar just reloads. They never rebuild. Some guys to keep an eye on this year: Ben Aldrich on the offensive and defensive lines, Braden Pocock, Clark Sidaway. All 3 of those guys started last year as linemen, and they are all back. You've got Riley Williams and Abe Baldwin back to lead the wide receivers. Dawson McAnally was a fantastic linebacker, great running back as well. And then, we ask all of our coaches when we work on our season previews to give us a list of new incoming players that will make an impact. Coach Richens sent us a list that was about 15 guys deep. And so he's counting on a lot of new guys, including senior Jack Gardner, who steps into the starting quarterback role for the first time. Of course, he's a fantastic baseball player, helped lead the Diggers to the baseball championship this past spring. Logan, the team that always seems to be the opposition for Sugar Salem is Homedale. Homedale has gone 60-8 over the past 6 seasons, and yet bagel when it comes to state championships because of Sugar Salem.
Right, and because their season either ends with them, Weiser, or last year Teton. That seems to be how the season ends for them. And again, just like you mentioned with Sugar, Homedale just reloads. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what's going on with the season. Doesn't matter how it goes. Doesn't matter who they lose. They're just going to plug somebody else in there, and they're just going to be good. That's what's going to happen with Homedale year in and year out. It's what continues to happen with Homedale. They do lose their starting quarterback from last year, but Dylan Fine was the quarterback last year, but he hadn't played quarterback before that. He's headed off to the University of Utah for baseball, right? He's a phenomenal pitcher, and he was asked to play quarterback this year. Probably looking like maybe Xavier Uranga will step into that role for Homedale. But Homedale, they like to get it done on the ground a lot as well. They've got a couple of good receivers out there. Luke Henry, great. They've got one of the worst matchup nightmares you'll find in Lucas Hall. He is going to tower over anybody that goes up to defend him. He is one of the tallest players that you will find this year on the football field. Great basketball player, great baseball player as well for Homedale. You know what? That's one that you just throw it up and say, hey, Luke, close your eyes. Hall's down there somewhere. He'll get it. He's just one of those guys that you can lean on in a tough situation, I think. So Homedale got a lot of good to look forward to this upcoming year. Like you mentioned, Weiser is that other team that sleeps, in the wings, that waits for their chance. They have done what Homedale has not and won a state championship over the last couple of years. They're the one team to beat Sugar Salem in that. And so Weiser is just a team, with Coach Harris, that you just cannot count them out. You can't. They are going to be good. We know that. It's going to come down to them being in the semifinals more than likely quarterfinals, somewhere in there, and probably playing either Sugar or Homedale and a chance to go to the next step. So, those three, it seems to always be those three in the mix, and I think it'll be the same this year as well.
Yeah, we should mention it was an all-East Idaho championship last year, Sugar Salem and Teton. Now, Teton lost a lot of talent. I mean, Thomas Husevelt might have been the best all-around player in the classification last year. But they do bring back the Joyce brothers, Jack Joyce and Joker Joyce. Joker is as a corner, Jack is a running back. Can they fill in the pieces around those two is the question there. Speaking of East Idaho, Snake River, the favorite over in District 5, the Southeast Idaho Conference. It was a tough league to gauge. All four teams received as high as second place votes because you've got Marsh Valley with a new coach and Jared Michelson. You've got American Falls, who brings back several athletes. American Falls was actually second in our preseason poll. And then Bear Lake moving up a classification as well. They were a very young team last year, took their lumps, and now are those young guys ready to compete at a higher level? We'll find out. But that was a tough league overall to gauge. Wasn't as difficult in District 4 with Kimberly. Spoiler alert, Bulldogs are going to be pretty good. They bring back Mason Jensen at wide receiver. They bring back Damon Taylor at running back. They bring back some dynamic defensive players. And this is a Kimberly team that many people expect to push the traditional powers, Homedale, Sugar, Teton, Weiser. No championships for Kimberly in their school history. Last year, their coach, Joe Dilley, said, we'd like a blue trophy for once. He said, we've got plenty of other colors. We want that first place trophy. We'll see if Kimberly can deliver there. And then I think the most intriguing storyline, Ryan, is up in the Intermountain League with Moscow dropping down. They had a pretty good quarterback last year in Noah Velasco, who should be back this year. And so Moscow did struggle to find their footing at the 5A level, but as we can see, they've already moved down, and already their peers are expecting Moscow to be pretty good out of the gate.
Yeah, moving down and moving the needle a little bit. You look at, we talk about Noah Velasco, a quarterback, very live arm. That's the thing. And he's got receivers around him too. There's some team speed there that's going to be in his hip pocket to be utilized. And I think where Moscow is going to make strides is going to be on the offensive and defensive front this year. They've been able to get numbers coming back out this year. Coach Bavis has done a great job with that, getting guys to turn back out. Moscow historically has had very, very strong defensive and offensive linemen. In fact, they've got a dude that just got drafted in the NFL in Ellis. So, like you talk about, Moscow historically has been known for being a gritty team. I think they're going to get back to the basics and get back to what they were known for. Coming down the classification, I think, is going to help them immensely in finding success, especially early on in the year. I mean, typically you've been seeing them obviously having to play, that some 6-8 smattering teams sprinkled in there and last year and years past. And they got a tougher schedule, though. I mean, they're playing Clarkston from Washington and Pullman on the front end of that schedule. I think they're going to take some lumps from a few of those teams, but I think it's going to pay dividends come league season. The IML is an interesting league. The more I look at it on paper, because Timberlake graduated so much talent. You and I got to call that first-round playoff game they had last year with American Falls. And you just look at that lineup, and you're like, man, these guys, you would think that they would have more state tournament wins under their belt with that group of seniors that they had last year, because they were so dynamic. And you talk about drop off. I mean, losing a quarterback like Cole Meidinger was phenomenal. I thought he was very underrated at the 3A level last year. Now they're 4A. How are they going to fill in those shoes? We know they run the wing tee. They're going to go basic ground and pound, 3 yards in a cloud of dust on you, and then eventually pop a play action over the middle to a tight end for 75 yards for a touchdown. That's Timberlake football. The team that kind of have the biggest question mark is Bonners Ferry. I mean, they weren't the strongest. They had that nice season the year before, playoff run, great group of seniors. There's a bunch of brothers that are on this year's group. You look at Brody Rice at quarterback, I think is another year under his belt, more experience. Bonners Ferry is kind of the X factor question mark team for me coming into the season. And more I look at it, I'm like, man, there is actually some really nice pieces coming back for the Badgers. You look at Abubakari, he is an absolute, that guy's a freak. You look at him lining up at tight end. How are you going to guard that? The kid is just an absolute monster. And so, he's going to be an absolute threat in the red zone. We know they can run the ball. Defensively was their question mark last year. They had a tough time stopping anyone, and they had penalties on penalties. And I know Coach talked about it a lot this offseason, but they want to get back to just playing more disciplined football. I think that they could find themselves in the mix realistically towards the end of the year. That Moscow-Bonners Ferry game could be pretty interesting.
Yeah, you mentioned Sule Abubakari, the 6'6", 220-pound junior tight end, absolute monster. If you're looking for a name that's not out there that's going to blow up this year, Sule Abubakari. His older sister Asha is now at Fresno State, where she is throwing for the Bulldogs track team. So very impressive family for sure. Let's go to the schedule of 4A games here in the opening weekend of action. I get to go first this time, guys, and I'm going to choose to talk about Timberlake. You set it up on a tee for me, Scaggs. Timberlake playing Sugar Salem, neutral site game in Anaconda, Montana, home of the Copperheads. Yes, Anaconda High Copperheads. It'll be a fun game. It's a cool stadium. It'll be an interesting atmosphere. They're meeting in the middle, so to speak. Timberlake, I mean, they lost a lot. Cooper Lenz, two-way All-State player. Jacob Yetter, Timberlake's school record holder in every receiving category. Cole Meidinger, Timberlake's all-time passing yardage leader, and 6 of the top 7 offensive linemen. Coach Kelly Amos summed it up. He said, hey, we returned 233 yards of offense from a team that had over 4,300 yards a season ago. So that's a little work in progress. Sugar Salem, I expect to win this game, but I am more interested to see how does Timberlake look against the absolute best right out of the gate. Ryan, what game are you looking at?
I'm not going to steal the game I think Logan's going to pick. So I'm going to kind of go off the board a little bit, and it's going to be a cross-classification matchup. I like that. And I'm going to be the homer, go up north. Lakeland and Bonners Ferry, to me, the only reason I picked this game is I want to see how close Bonners Ferry can keep this game. I really look at Lakeland. Obviously, they can put their foot on the gas and score points in a hurry, especially with that running game that they've got. Can Bonners Ferry buckle down and play defense? I really look at that game, and if the Badgers can play more consistent, play ball control on offense, and then they can stand their ground a little bit better on defense this year, be interesting to see how things go with that schedule that they've got.
Logan?
Man, you just totally swung and missed on this Declo Teton game. How about this? These are two teams.
You didn't pick the one I thought you were going to pick.
These two teams played for a state championship last year. They both the 3A and 2A championships last year. These two teams did lose some, lost some pieces, but it'll be real interesting, I think, to see how this one shakes out. I think Declo is ready to go. I think they're a little bit mad about what happened last year, losing that game, the state championship to Westside. I think that they thought they didn't play their best game in that state championship, and they're already they didn't sulk about it. It was almost like, all right, we're done. We're going to do this next year. And how about it to start off their season going on the road and playing Teton? I think it's a great way to start things off for Declo. And then if you're Teton on the opposite side, you lose a couple of great players. You mentioned it, Brandon Husefeld, but Ty Brown is gone. So is Jack Nelson, who was the quarterback last year. So it'll be interesting to see who kind of fills in these gaps for Teton on the offensive side of the ball. But when you look at Declo, they're returning a lot of great guys. Rasmussen, Brackenberry, Gerard is back. They've got a lot of good players. This should be a really fun, entertaining game, I think, between two teams that played for state championships last year.